So now we're going to learn about letter spacing, word spacing, and the color CSS properties. And all three of those CSS properties do pretty much exactly what you would think they do from their names. Color isn't always quite as clear because you might think, hey, let me change the color of an object. But color only applies to text. So that's how you change the color of text, is with the color CSS property. Letter spacing changes the spacing between letters, which also is referred to as kerning. So kerning is the spacing between letters or the spacing between characters. So I remember kerning characters, line height leading. That's kind of how I remember those. And then word spacing sets the spacing between words, and that's pretty much it. So these are pretty self-explanatory. I have some nice examples for you over here where they're being used, where we set spacing between letters, set spacing between words, and like change the color of the font. And so you can check those out. Those are self-explanatory. And the interesting thing is just to kind of like take a moment and look at the values that each of these properties can take. So both letter spacing and word spacing can take the keyword normal. So hey, make this normal. And then both of them also could take the length CSS data type. So rem, VW, pixels, any of those other crazy ones, which I recommend you avoid, they could take those, stick with rem, VWs or pixels, mostly just use rem. And word spacing can also take percentage, which, by the way, is not the length CSS data type. So also good to know. And then finally, color takes a color CSS data type. So check that out. This is like the next data type we've learned about. And CSS data type color is kind of a cool thing to check out. So you can come here and you can kind of look at it. And colors can take like a keyword, or they could take RGB hex values. And so with RGB hex values, this is like the red, the green, the blue. And so that's what RGB stands for, red, green, blue. And so the theory behind that is that you can make any color out of a combination of red, green, and blue. And it seems like it's true, though I'm no color expert. And there's different ways you could do, hexadecimal or RGB, or you could do RGBA, which stands for alpha. And anytime you hear alpha in doing graphics, you're pretty much talking about transparency. So RGBA lets you set transparency. So what does that look like? You can come down and look, there's hexadecimal, these pound signs right here. And if you continue with me on these courses through learning about web programming, we're going to learn HTML and CSS, then we're going to learn JavaScript, and then we're going to learn the Go programming language. So we understand that language. This is for server side. And then we will learn how to do websites with the Go programming language. You got to learn the language fundamentals first of Go and then the web programming. But when we learn the language fundamentals of Go, I'll teach you all about like computers and switches and binary and different numeral systems, right? The decimal numeral system, the binary numeral system, the hexadecimal numeral system. And so this is hexadecimal here. And yeah, hexadecimal. And so that's how you do colors with hexadecimal, just like that. The hex values, that's what that stands for. And hex, a decimal. Decimal is 10, hex is 6. So it's a base 16 numeral system. This will all make sense in 3 courses. Those numeral systems will. But you can see how RGB works. So here's a red value, a green value, a blue value. So we're going to have a lot of red, full red, absolutely no green, 0 green, and just like, a fifth of blue. So it's going to be a reddish blue, light purple color. And we could check that out. 255, 0, 51. We could go to a color picker and I could put in 255, 0, and 51. And so that gave us a red color with a little bit of blue in it. We could pump the blue up and we could see that kind of like makes it that color. Or total red and total blue gave us that color. I don't know how you get purple. I thought red and blue made purple. Where is purple? Purple's like right. That's kind of purple. That's totally purple. 130 and 209. It's actually more blue than red. So red, green, blue. Anyhow, that's how RGB works. Here you can see RGBA. And so this is like 10% opaque. This is full opaque, right? So this would be just like RGB, meaning don't have any transparency. This is like, 70% opaque. This is only 10% opaque, so 90% transparent. So that's how you do some transparency, and you could see the color behind the text or whatever's behind the text. That's kind of cool. Mostly I stick with RGBA, hexadecimal, right? And just like keywords. That's how I do my colors. So that's a little bit on colors. It's one of the main things you've got from this video, a little introduction to colors. And don't sweat it if that hexadecimal stuff isn't making sense. It'll make sense pretty soon, just a couple of courses. And if you think these courses are about a semester length course, you know, semester is 17 weeks of instruction, 1 to 2 hours a week. That's 17 to 34 hours of instruction, but I condense things down when we do these video trainings. And so that's really like only like, you know, 4 courses, 20 hours each, 80 hours of instruction. That sounds like a lot, but it's not that bad. You know, if you look at like other professions where it's like, you know, you have to have 2,000 hours of community service before you could be a social worker. I knew somebody who was a social worker, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's a whole lot, right? Anyhow, 80 hours of instruction. And then it'll make sense. All right, that's letter spacing, word spacing, and color properties. And in the next video, we're going to learn something new. I haven't quite figured out what yet, but it's coming. See you in that one.